Hey guys, it's Wednesday, March 13th, and this is Treasure Christ Today. Welcome back. We are in Genesis 9 today, so grab your Bibles and read along with us starting in verse 1. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and terror of you will be in every living creature on the earth, every bird of the sky, every creature that crawls on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. They are placed under your authority. Every creature that lives and moves will be food for you. As I gave the green plants, I have given you everything. However, you must not eat meat with its lifeblood in it, and I will require a penalty for your lifeblood. I will require it from any animal and from any human. If someone murders a fellow human, I will require that person's life. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans his blood will be shed, for God made humans in his image. But you be fruitful and multiply, spread out over the earth and multiply on it." Then God said to Noah and his sons with him, "Understand that I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, birds, livestock, and all wildlife of the earth that are with you. All the animals of the earth that came out of the ark, I establish my covenant with you, that never again will every creature be wiped out by floodwaters. There will never again be a flood to destroy the earth." And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you, and every living creature with you, a covenant for all future generations. I have placed my bow in the clouds. It will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I form clouds over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all the living creatures. Water will never again become a flood to destroy every creature. The bow will be in the clouds, and I will look at it and remember the permanent covenant between God and all the living creatures on earth." God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and every creature on earth." Noah's sons, who came out of the ark, were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were Noah's sons, and from them the whole earth was populated. Noah, as a man of the soil, began by planting a vineyard. He drank some of the wine, became drunk, and uncovered himself inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a cloak and placed it over both their shoulders, and walking backwards, they covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father naked. When Noah awoke from his drinking and learned what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Canaan is cursed. He will be the lowest of slaves to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Let Canaan be Shem's slave. Let God extend Japheth. Let Japheth dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be Shem's slave." Now Noah lived 350 years after the flood. So Noah's life lasted 950 years. Then he died. This is the word of the Lord. Genesis chapter 9 begins with these incredible words: God blessed Noah. And how did God bless Noah? God blessed Noah with the same command that God gave to Adam and Eve in the garden in Genesis 1:26 through 28. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. This signals that what God is doing here is like a work of new creation. Adam and Eve were created on the earth, and the purpose for their creation was to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth with the image of God, as they are his image bearers. And so too Noah, as a new Adam, now in this new creation, is meant to fill the earth and to multiply and to spread the image of God everywhere you go. Now, the next section of this text tells that God expands his provision to include all of the animals that he has created. Every bird of the sky and every creature that crawls is placed under the authority of Noah. and his sons, and he has given them for food. He has provided everything that they need. Now, he does caution and clarify that they must not eat meat with its lifeblood in it. And here they're going to teach a lesson here. It is from the lifeblood that a man and animals lives and exists. And so if someone murders someone else by shedding their lifeblood, God says in verse 5, I will require that person's life. Why? Because verse 6 tells us God made humans in his image. This is why when humans shed blood, by humans, his blood will be shed. Now, this establishes a principle of justice that is distinctly different than what was happening on the earth prior to the flood. Do you remember Lamech when he called out in chapter 4 to demand upon anybody who wrongs him 77 times in response against them? Now, this response here in chapter 9 is a one for one. And so I do think that this passage justifies the government bearing the sword and accomplishing or using capital punishment to punish those evildoers who murder other human beings. But then God shifts in verse 7, and he looks at Noah and his sons, and he repeats again for them to be fruitful and to multiply and to spread out over all the earth. And as he repeats this blessing, he now will give them his word, his covenant. And so in verse 9, God looks at Noah and says, understand, I am establishing my covenant with you, with your descendants, and with every living creature that is within the earth. And so we call this the Noahic covenant because Noah is the covenant head by which everyone underneath Noah receives the promise of God. And in this promise of the Noahic covenant, God establishes anew the promise that he will keep this earth continuing in its way until the promise of the seed of the woman comes. And so God will never again judge the earth by floodwaters to destroy the earth. This is a covenant that he keeps. And so he places as a sign of the covenant a rainbow in the sky. And so as we see the rainbow in the sky, we are to be reminded that God has committed himself to his people and to his creation, that he will keep this covenant, that he will never again pour out his wrath on the earth in this way of a flood. Now, why is this the case? What God is demonstrating here, what God is demonstrating through the story of the flood is that God's judgment alone against sin cannot simply conquer the seed of the serpent. He can kill the seed of the serpent, but that's not God's ultimate purpose. God's ultimate purpose is for there to be an offspring of God that worships him. And then for that to happen, they have to have their sin eradicated. And God judging the earth with his wrath poured out in a flood will not simply deal with the issue of sin in humans' hearts. And how do we see that? We see that in the last story of Genesis 9. Noah has a righteous man who has been saved by God from his wrath, and he's been planted by God now in a vineyard. Noah goes and he is a man of the soil, and he gives himself to planting a vineyard, and there are grapes in this vineyard by which he makes wine. And what does Noah do with the grapes of the vineyard? He sins against God. He gets drunk on the wine, and he passes out, naked. He is naked, and there is shame for his nakedness. His youngest son, Ham, sees that he is naked, and instead of covering him, instead of doing anything, he goes and he gossips and he spreads this word to his brothers. His two brothers, Shem and Japheth, determine to clothe their father, but they don't want to see his nakedness, so they walk in backwards with a cloth and they place it over him, this cloak. But ultimately, what this story is going to see is that Noah wakes up and he eventually finds out what his youngest son has done to him, Ham. And you hear the words in verse 25, Canaan is cursed. Now, the only time you hear the words, someone is cursed in the story, Genesis 3, you heard that it was the serpent who is cursed. In Genesis 4, you heard it was Cain who was cursed. Now you hear Canaan is cursed. This shows that Ham and his offspring are aligned with the seed of the serpent. And what we note here in this text is that just as Noah was a new Adam, and that after the flood, there is this new type creation that is here, what we encounter is that in Noah's heart, there is still sin and wickedness. There's still rebellion against God. So just as Adam and Eve fell in the garden with the fruit in the garden, and that fruit caused them to get naked and be ashamed, so too Noah here falls in the vineyard with the fruit of the vineyard, rebelling against God and sinning, causing him to get naked and be ashamed. So now this moves us along in the story with a question. Then who will be the seed of the woman? If Noah is not hit, who will come to crush the head of the seed of the serpent? Ultimately, we know that the story is that Jesus Christ has come and he is the seed of the woman. And he has come to end Satan, sin, and death for God's children. And so may we be those people who treasure Jesus Christ this day and every day. Love you guys. I hope you have a great day. We will see you back here tomorrow for Genesis chapter 10. Grace and peace.